Well, hi there and welcome, future IELTS test takers. I'm your host, Nas, CELTA certified, IELTS accredited with 12 years of international experience. And today we're diving into part one of the speaking test. It's a crucial component where you will need to demonstrate your ability to communicate fluently and confidently on familiar topics. That's the easy part, familiar topics. Now, while part one may seem straightforward, it requires strategic preparation and practice to showcase your language proficiency effectively. So even though you might be familiar with the topics, you need to target the language and you need to showcase your language proficiency, especially in terms of lexical resource. And you need to do this effectively. So in this session, we'll explore various strategies and provide practical tips to help you excel in part one of the IELTS speaking test. We will also look at part two and part three. If you're ready, let's get started. Now let's look at the structure, and it's really important that you understand the structure of the part one of the IELTS speaking test. It consists of a somewhat friendly interview between you and the interviewer, lasting approximately 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner will ask you a series of questions on familiar topics: work, studies, hobbies, family, personal interest. Here, the objective is to assess your ability to communicate spontaneously and fluently in English. Now, while the questions may vary, they typically follow a predictable pattern, starting with simple introductory questions before progressing to more complex topics. So, understanding the structure of part one is essential for effectively navigating the interview and preparing your responses. Please click on the link in the description for a free downloadable copy of this video, the material covered in this video, as well as current topics. Now, the strategy for introducing yourself. A strong introduction sets the tone for your performance in part one. Start by greeting the examiner politely and providing brief, concise answers to the initial questions about your name, nationality, occupation, and hobbies. Use this opportunity to showcase your pronunciation, fluency, your ability to communicate basic personal information confidently. Remember to speak naturally. Avoid memorized responses. I cannot emphasize that enough. Avoid memorized responses. The examiner is looking for authentic communication skills rather than scripted answers. To be honest with you guys, the examiner knows. The examiner knows when an answer has been memorized. Additionally, maintain eye contact and smile to create a positive impression and establish rapport with the examiner from the outset. You are not getting graded on body language, but hey, there's really no harm in maintaining eye contact, smiling, and creating a positive, pleasant atmosphere. I think by doing that, you will perform better. What are your thoughts on that? Please comment below. Now let's talk about maintaining a conversation in part one. So part one of the IELTS speaking test has been designed to stimulate a natural conversation. So it's essential to engage with the examiner and keep the dialogue flowing smoothly. No short answers. This is important. Make a note of this. Also, listen carefully to the questions and respond thoughtfully, elaborating on your answers with relevant details, examples, personal experiences. This allows you to show off your vocabulary. And if you are unsure about a question, just like in the real world, don't hesitate to ask for clarification or repetition. And take advantage of opportunities to express opinions, preferences, and feelings, especially when you get to part three, but also in part one. If there's an opportunity to do it, take advantage of it, because this demonstrates your ability to communicate effectively in various contexts. And I do believe that if you make a great impression at the outset, the examiner notices and then immediately kind of classifies you into a band 6 or 7 or 8, as opposed to a band 5. So hit the ground running. Start out on a strong note. Something I'd really like to mention here, and we are going to cover this in all of our tutorials, is use linking words and phrases to connect your ideas and maintain coherence throughout the conversation. It's a conversation. It's not a list of sentences. Now let's talk about providing detailed responses. One of the key criteria for success in the IELTS speaking test is the ability to provide detailed and relevant, logical, coherent responses to the examiner's questions. So before the test, practice expanding upon your answers by including specific examples, anecdotes, or explanations to support your points. Please avoid giving brief yes or no responses. This may limit your opportunity to demonstrate your language proficiency. Do you have a hobby? Yes. How is the examiner supposed to score you on yes? I mean, to be honest, I can say yes in multiple languages. It's not going to get me a band 7, 8, or 9. So instead, strive to provide comprehensive answers that showcase your vocabulary range, grammatical accuracy, and your ability to express your ideas clearly. Remember to speak at a moderate pace. Fast does not equal fluent. We've covered this in other videos. Check those out. So remember to speak at a moderate pace, enunciating words clearly, and avoiding long pauses or hesitations. Thinking pauses are fine. Long pauses or hesitation while you are trying to translate from your native language into English, that's bad. And why should you speak at a moderate pace? It allows you to enunciate and to pronounce your words clearly. This is an interesting concept. Stay with me here for a minute. Aim to strike a balance between fluency and accuracy, emphasizing effective communication over perfection. What are your thoughts on that? Strike a balance. I'm not saying be fluent and not accurate. I'm saying strike a balance between fluency and accuracy. Emphasize effective communication over perfection. Just think about it. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, here's an idea: effective practice. Without a doubt, it's essential for success in part 1 and part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. And here are some practical tips to help you prepare effectively. It's great for me to say, well, prepare and practice, but how do you prepare effectively? Let's go through the list. First up, familiarize yourself with common part 1 topics. So review the current topics. There's a wide range of topics such as family, hobbies, work, education, travel, technology. Expand your repertoire of vocabulary and ideas. Get your hands on the current speaking topics. If you follow this channel and if you follow these series, you will be exposed to all of them. So my advice to you would be right now, like and subscribe, stay connected. Next up, practice speaking regularly. Engage in daily conversations with friends, family members, language partners. Join one of my group classes, one of my courses. Improve your fluency and confidence in expressing yourself in English. You need to practice. You cannot succeed in a vacuum. Sure, you can practice in front of a mirror, but if you want to boost your fluency and confidence at the same time while expressing yourself in English, I think it's really important to be speaking to another human being. What are your thoughts on that? Another suggestion is to record and review your practice sessions. So record yourself answering part 1 and part 2. Listen back. Identify areas for improvement in pronunciation, grammar, and coherence. Be hard on yourself. Don't just listen to the answer and say, oh, that's good. We want it to be great. So listen, thinking in terms of what's good about this answer, what's not great about this answer, where can I improve? How was my pronunciation? Did I struggle with this word? Am I struggling with this grammar structure? If I am, I need to practice it a bit before using it. And how was my coherence? You really do need to be hard on yourself here. Next up, seek feedback. Practice speaking with a teacher. It's worth your time. It's worth the money you invest. If you practice with a tutor who can give you constructive feedback on your performance to identify your strengths and areas for development. You could do the same thing over and over again, not get any feedback. Is that really progress? Well, if you are doing the same thing over and over again and it's not the right thing, if your pronunciation is problematic, if you are not coherent, if your answers are not logical, and no one is telling you you're not getting constructive, honest feedback, then you're not going to improve. You're not going to develop. You're just going to do the same thing over and over again. And Einstein said that's madness, because you do the same thing over and over again. You want a different result. It's never going to work. Another strategy is to simulate test conditions. So practice answering part 1 questions under timed conditions. Also part 2, even more important for part 2, to simulate the pressure of the actual exam and to improve your time management skills. Now, let's explore an example response to a typical part 1 question, and we're going to analyze its strengths and weaknesses. At this point, please do message us, click on the link in the description and get a printout, a PDF, free downloadable PDF of this session. And that way you can actually follow while watching this video. So suppose the examiner asks you about your favorite hobby. Well, here's how you might structure your response. Well, one of my favorite hobbies is playing the guitar. One of my favorite, excellent structure. And when you say, well, that's very natural, very native, very organic. I've been playing for about 5 years now. I have been playing for about 5 years now. Perfect tense. And it's something I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about. I find it incredibly rewarding to express myself through music and connect with others through performances and jam sessions. Now, what score do you think that answer is going to get? Well, in my opinion, it's a clear 8 or 9. I don't see any idiomatic language, but I do see some really good phrases and vocabulary. Now, why is this a good answer? In this example, the candidate introduces the topic clearly and expresses enthusiasm for their favorite hobby. They provide specific details about their experience playing the guitar, including the duration of their involvement and the personal satisfaction they derive from it. The candidate also demonstrates a good range of vocabulary related to hobbies, especially playing the guitar, and leisure activities, and the candidate maintains coherence and fluency throughout the response. Additionally, the candidate elaborates on their answers with relevant examples and personal experiences, enriching their response, making it more engaging, and also showcasing a wide range of vocabulary when providing these examples and personal experiences. Okay, now we'll move on to part 2, which is the long turn, and we're going to look at how we can master this part. So part 2, the long turn, is often considered the most challenging section of the speaking test. In my opinion, it's the easiest one to tackle, and I'm going to walk you through it in multiple episodes on this channel. Now, what happens in part 2, or the long turn? In this part, you will be given a task card with a topic to talk about for 2 minutes and to succeed in part 2. And by succeed, I am targeting band 7, band 8, band 9. You'll need to demonstrate the ability to speak coherently, fluently, confidently, while organizing your ideas effectively and using a wide lexical resource. Now, we'll break down the structure of part 2 responses and provide you with step-by-step strategies for preparing and delivering your answer. Now, you have 1 minute to prepare. So IELTS Part 2, the long turn. In this segment, you are required to speak uninterrupted for 2 minutes on a given topic, showcasing your ability to express yourself clearly and coherently under pressure. But hey, relax, fear not. With the right strategies and practice, you can conquer part 2 and boost your overall speaking score. So, are you ready to roll up your sleeves and dive into some practical tips and examples to help you master this critical part of the IELTS exam? And I say it's a critical part because if you don't do well in part 2, you're going to feel it, you're going to sense it. If you crash and burn in part 2, it's really difficult to save yourself in part 3. So it's important that you get this right. So in part 2 of the IELTS speaking test, you'll receive a task card with a specific topic and a set of prompts to guide your response. The task card will typically include 3 elements: the topic itself, a prompt instructing you to speak for 2 minutes, and bullet points outlining what you should include in your response. Not have to, what you should. It's essential to read the task card carefully and understand the instructions before you begin speaking. So take a moment to familiarize yourself with the topic, the keywords, and brainstorm ideas to structure your response effectively. Now, to succeed in part 2, band 7, 8, 9, it's crucial to structure your response in a clear and logical manner. So start by introducing the topic, paraphrasing the task card to demonstrate your understanding. Then outline the main points or aspects of the topic that you plan to discuss during your 2-minute speech. You can use the bullet points provided on the task card as a guide for organizing your answers. You don't have to, but my advice is you should, because those bullet points guide you. They prompt you. That's why they call prompts. They prompt you and they help you to think of ideas instead of you starting from zero. So develop each point with supporting details and examples or personal experiences to enrich your response, make it more engaging. And then finally conclude your 2-minute speech by summarizing your main points. And you know what? Maybe even offering a closing remark or some type of reflection. Now, preparation is key for success in IELTS speaking. But in part 2, we have some practical tips to help you prepare effectively. First up, expand your vocabulary. Familiarize yourself with a range of vocabulary related to common IELTS speaking topics to express your ideas more precisely and fluently. Learn the vocabulary, use the vocabulary, master the vocabulary. Use the vocabulary with precision. Do not memorize sentences with the vocabulary, because you'll be tempted in the exam under pressure to use them, and they might not be logical or coherent. Next up, develop ideas. Practice brainstorming and organizing your thoughts on various topics to improve your ability to generate relevant and coherent responses. Again, record yourself, record your practice sessions, listen back, identify areas for improvement, really listen. Are you fluent? Is your pronunciation good enough? How about your coherence? And then seek feedback. Once again, it's really worth investing in a good tutor or language partner. Ask for feedback. You really do need to identify strengths and areas for development. Now let's explore an example response to a typical part 2 task card, and we're going to analyze the strengths and weaknesses. Now suppose the task card instructs you to describe a memorable holiday you've taken. I would like you to pause the video at this point and create your answer. So describe a memorable holiday you have taken, when it was, where did you go, who did you go with, and describe how you felt. Pause the video, take a minute to create your answer. Then record your answer for 2 minutes, and then restart this video. So the topic I've been given is to describe a memorable holiday I've taken. So I'll begin by providing some details about a recent trip to Thailand that left a lasting impression on me. So here, the candidate introduces the topic clearly and concisely and provides a brief overview of the holiday destination. Then, the candidate will proceed to describe the key highlights of the trip, including the activities they participated in. Once again, pause the video and list as many activities as you can. Just scribble on a page. Let's do some brainstorming. Next, the places visited and the experiences they had. Now, if you have a good range of vocabulary, if you use descriptive language to evoke imagery, if you can create a vivid picture of the holiday experience, you are going to score well. Now, in this series, I'm going to cover the horror topics. Can we call them the horror topics, the hated topics? But at this point, congratulations on completing our in-depth exploration of part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. By now, you should have a clear understanding of the task requirements. You should know how to structure your response effectively and practice with a variety of topics. And if you do this, you will be well prepared to tackle this challenging and really important section of the exam with confidence. I truly believe that if you fail here or you don't do well here, it's game over. I don't believe that many people have the confidence to then ace part 3. It's going to affect your confidence. So, in my opinion, really focus on getting part 2 right. Okay, let's talk about part 3 of the speaking test. And here I'm going to say, get yourself a tutor. This part of the speaking test involves a discussion with the examiner on related themes from your part 2. So this section requires you to engage in a more extended and nuanced conversation, expressing opinions, speculating, providing reasons for your views. Now, to really excel in part 3, it's essential to actively listen to the examiner's questions, respond thoughtfully, and engage in meaningful dialogue. So let's discuss some strategies for navigating part 3 questions. So without a doubt, in part 3, the conversation becomes more intricate, more thought-provoking. So in this section, you'll engage in a discussion with the examiner on the topics related to whatever was on your task card in part 2. And you need to demonstrate your ability to express opinions, to speculate, and to provide reasoned arguments. The PDF has a section on this with vocabulary you can use to express opinions, speculate, and to provide reasoned arguments. I also suggest working with a professional if you really want to target band 7, 8, and 9. Now, part 3, I'm going to be honest with you, presents a unique set of challenges, but with the right strategies and with practice, you can navigate it successfully. So are you ready to hone your skills for part 3? Let's do this. Now, part 3 of the IELTS speaking test requires active listening and thoughtful responses. As the examiner poses questions based on the topic, like I said, introduced in part 2, listen attentively to each question and ensure you understand its nuances. Really understand the question. Take a moment to breathe, to process the question before formulating your response, allowing yourself time to gather your thoughts and organize your ideas coherently. And I can hear some of you screaming out there, what about fluency? Hesitations are not good. Hesitations when you don't know vocab, hesitations when you're translating from your native language, those are bad. Pauses, thinking pauses are normal, they're natural, they're logical. So take time. I don't mean 10 minutes. I mean, take a beat. Okay. Think. Thinking pause. Thinking pause is good. Remember that in the exam. Nas said thinking pauses are okay. Allow yourself time to gather your thoughts. Organize your ideas coherently. I mean, is it possible to talk without thinking? Would that be coherent? Would that be logical? No, we all pause to think. So listen to the question, understand the question, the nuances. not just what you think the question means, not just what you hope the question means, but what the question actually means. And remember to address each aspect of the question comprehensively, providing detailed responses that not only show that you're logical and you're coherent, but also showcase your language proficiency and your speaking skills. Okay, are you ready for part 3, opinions? So part 3 offers you the opportunity to express your opinions on various issues and to speculate about potential outcomes or implications. Now, when presenting your views, be confident, be assertive, but also open-minded. Support your opinions with relevant examples, evidence, personal experiences, strengthen your arguments, demonstrate your critical thinking skills, and above all, focus on language and lexical resource. Additionally, don't hesitate to speculate about hypothetical scenarios. Throw in your second conditional, future developments, second conditional, showcasing your ability to think creatively, to engage in discourse, and using grammar. Why not? Now, in part 3, you will be expected to provide reasons and justifications for your opinions. Part 3 reminds me very much of the IELTS essay. So you do need to provide reasons and justifications for your opinions, for your assertions, for your speculations. And when offering explanations, consider the underlying factors, motivations, or even consequences that support your stance. Use persuasive language, logical reasoning, articulate your points effectively. Make sure that your arguments are compelling, convincing, coherent, and of course, display really good vocabulary. Draw on real life examples. That's my go-to strategy. That's my cheat. We have real life experience, so draw on real life examples. Current events, that can add credibility to your responses. It can enrich the depth of your analysis. And when it comes to current events, I really do suggest that you read news articles daily leading up to the exam. We also have a lovely series, Reading in English with Emily, which really does expose you to a wide range of vocabulary. And since I've been doing this for 12 years, and I know the themes and the topics of the IELTS exam, when I create material, it's always linked because the IELTS exam is a reflection of the real world. So the two are intertwined. So whether you're just watching this video or you watch the Reading in English with Emily series, it's going to help to boost your vocabulary score and also provide you with ideas. Now, you might not like this, but speaking part 3 is a dialogue. It's not a monologue like part 2. So be prepared to engage in meaningful exchanges with the examiner. Now, what's difficult about this? Well, it's not a lecture or a speech. It's a dialogue. So you do need to listen actively to the examiner's follow-up questions or prompts, and then you need to respond accordingly. This is why I think it's so important to join a group class or group course, because you learn to listen actively. So listen actively to the follow-up questions, build upon your initial answers, contribute to the ongoing conversation, demonstrate your communication skills, show that you are able to engage in constructive discourse. I really do think that group classes are the solution here, because you have no idea what others are going to say to you. You've got to listen actively, and then you've got to respond. So think about that. That would be my advice if you are taking the test. Now, navigating part 3 questions requires a strategic approach. I'm not going to lie to you, so that it ensures you address the examiner's prompts comprehensively, also while showcasing your language proficiency effectively. I have a couple strategies, so just stay with me. Analyze the question. Take a moment to carefully analyze the question. Identify key terms, themes, subtopics that need to be addressed in your response. I mentioned the word nuance before. Don't just take the question at face value. Don't read. And when I say read, I mean read into the question what you want to hear. Listen to what the examiner is actually saying, not what you want to hear. Now, plan your response. Now, not writing it down, but do take a moment, take a beat, take a breath to think before you speak. When you speak, your answer has to be coherent. It has to be structured. It has to be logical. And at the same time, you have to layer in the language and the vocabulary. So you do need time to think. Use varied language. Demonstrate your lexical range by incorporating a variety of vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, discourse markers. Add all of that and get the downloadable PDF because we've included all of that stuff to help you really score band 8 and 9. And once again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of supporting your arguments. Back up your opinions with relevant examples, evidence, personal experiences. This will strengthen your arguments, make them more persuasive. But also when we're talking about things we know about, personal experiences, it flows. The conversation flows and it's fluent. And that way we also have the time and the space to focus on language and lexical resource. Now, it's really important that you monitor your time in part 3 because part 3 questions involve longer, more elaborate responses. So no short answers, no single sentence answers. Practice and learn how to manage your time effectively so you cover all aspects of the question. And stay focused. This is a tough part of the test. It's easy to lose focus. So maintain focus and clarity. You're getting towards the end. Don't drop the ball now. Okay. Avoid irrelevant information that detracts from your main points. You don't want to lose, your score, part of your score in terms of coherence. I know at this point you probably just want this to be over, but don't lose focus. Like I said, keep your eye on the ball, and you need to be flexible. You really do, because you need to respond to the examiner's follow-up questions or prompts. So you really need to stay focused. You need to listen, and you need to respond based on what the examiner says. So how do you do this? By practicing active listening. You need to practice active listening skills to fully understand the examiner's questions and respond thoughtfully. And once again, I'm going to say that join a group class. I've had students whose listening skills in the listening part of the test has gone up by 1 band, by 2 bands, just because they were now exposed to different accents, different speech patterns, different nationalities. And it's also going to help you with listening when the examiner is speaking to you. So I would suggest practice answering part 3 questions with a teacher, with a tutor, get constructive feedback. But I really do believe that working with a group helps. It really does. Because with a teacher, you can enter a comfort zone after a while. You can become too dependent, too reliant, too comfortable. And then when you are exposed to the real world, to an examiner who is not your tutor, who doesn't speak like your tutor, you just don't know how to deal with it. So my advice is join a course. Now, by incorporating these strategies into your preparation and practice, I believe that you can really enhance your IELTS speaking test scores. Are you ready to put some of these strategies into action? Okay, let's do it.